All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Well, we're on the brink of an energy crisis. Fuel prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is horrible. People can barely afford groceries. They're scared. They're getting riled up. They're getting divisive, pointing the finger. We might as well have a chuckle in the midst of all of this trash in the news. I was going to say I had a beautiful weekend. It was great. Just calm, chill, peaceful, relaxing. The crappy thing is we have this big trip coming up, which we booked a long time ago, before, mind you, Trump was in office. So there's always some built-in instability to that because the guy's so unpredictable. You just can't predict what the world's going to be like tomorrow, yet alone 2 or 3 months from now. So yeah, we have this trip coming up, and now my wife is getting stressed out. I typically don't get stressed out. I just take things as they come. It's like there's not much we can do about it. That said, we've spent a fair chunk of change on the trip so far, and I don't think any of it's refundable. So unless the airlines or the places cancel, and then we'd get a refund, I guess. But anyways, let's get into some stories. I see the U.S. has just attacked Carg Island. Seems to be escalating quite a bit. The Epstein war is coming to a head, and it's crazy. All right, let's get into these stories. Hope everyone's doing great. As good as can be, at least, eh? Yeah, as good as can be, eh? Let me have a sip of coffee. And let's get to these American stories. Stupid American tourists. Ignorant, entitled American tourists. Basically just every American tourist. No, there's good ones. But yeah, most. All right, number one. I was a waitress in a fairly smart restaurant for a couple of summers as a teenager. One evening, we had an American family in. The children, including a boy of at least 15, couldn't eat anything off the menu because it was fish, vegetables, or meat, and it wasn't shaped like a dinosaur or whatever. Chef ended up inventing a menu for them. The parents needed their orders changed too. No this. Can you add this? Can you do that? Then the children all sat there playing video games with the volume up. Parents almost shouting over the volume. Manager has a word and gets told that it is there. Goddamn right! Fun. Also had a guy who was trying to flirt nearly soil himself when he saw that I could, quote, drive stick, unquote. A couple of years ago. Also had an American lady screaming at me because my bikini bottoms were a little on the skimpy side. Literally screaming, and I was on the beach, not in church. Seriously, who's gonna complain about somebody else's bikini? Mind your business. It doesn't affect you. Who cares? And why would you complain about such a thing as a skimpy bikini? Why? What are you doing? As for the first one, horrible parents. These kids, I feel bad for the kids. If anything, we should feel sorry for the children because they haven't been brought up right. They haven't been brought up with any sort of manners. Playing video games in a restaurant with the volume up. That's extremely inconsiderate and self-entitled. So it's just like, me. I'm going to do this for my immediate satisfaction. Bugger everybody else around me. Very American attitude, I would say. But I wouldn't blame the kids. I would blame these parents and their quote-unquote goddamn God-given rights to shout and just be obnoxious. At a restaurant, get the order, the menu, however they want. They should watch the movie The Menu. It would have been if anybody's seen that film, it's pretty good. It's not the best, but the concept is a funny satirical concept where this chef he becomes so pissed off that people don't respect food. They don't taste it. They don't enjoy it. They have zero gratitude. It's just a product, and he becomes basically the movie. He kills everybody. It's kind of like a cult mass suicide, and yeah, he decides that everybody's gonna die. That's at the restaurant because they're all basically horrible people. All right, one that sticks out is a guy we met at an airport once. He was from New York, and he was very interested in the fact that we were British. When I mentioned I was Welsh, he asked me whereabouts in London Wales is. He also asked us if we knew the Queen, and told us he'd love to visit Stonehenge. He also expressed surprise that we had nice teeth, which was apparently meant to be a compliment. So much going on that one. The stereotype about British teeth, I think, is unfair. I don't know when did that stereotype even start, anyways. Doesn't seem. Once again, Americans in geography, they do not mix. They don't mix. All right. So, I met two Marines on holiday, and they asked if Scotland was near London. What is this with Americans thinking that everybody in the United Kingdom has met the Queen? Like, why? They also were shocked that the word biscuits meant something different in England and announced that I was wrong because they were speaking English. Biscuits in England, as far as I understand it, are like little cookies, right? Cracker cookies. Tea and biscuits, you got a little cookie for your tea. As far as I understand, that's would be the meaning of biscuit in England. I think in a Canadian context, or at least even a West Coast Canadian context, if you said biscuit to somebody, they're either going to think a hockey puck, pass a biscuit, or they're going to think like a biscuit, like a dinner biscuit. It's more like old-fashioned biscuit. You dip in the gravy and stuff like that, as opposed to a cookie. On holiday in Iceland. I want to go to Iceland someday. I have Icelandic roots. On holiday in Iceland, and queuing up at a gift shop / food counter thing, American tourist, who dressed like it as well, with the baseball cap, team shirt, and massive digital camera. The team shirt, classic. Gets to the front of the queue. He points at something on a shelf at the back, a stuffed toy or something, and asks, "How much is that?" The lady behind the counter replies that it's just a decoration and it's not for sale. "Right, but how much is it?" he asks again and gets the same answer. This conversation is repeated another couple of times as the tourist can't comprehend that it's not for sale. Eventually, one of our group pipes up. She's a New Yorker and used her best New York loud voice. "For God's sake, she told you in English it's not for sale. What are you not understanding? Now get out of the way. You're giving us all a bad name." And tourist guide did just that. He scuttled out of the shop and went on his way. American on American tourist violence. We need more of that. I worked at a service station, and an American chap came in asking for directions to the next town. It was literally as simple as coming off the next exit, and you were in the middle of said town. He got back in his car, but after a chat with his wife, he came back with a map and his sat-nav to get better directions. Well, you can never be too sure, can you? The amount of ignorance I've seen from American tourists is breathtaking. I've seen Americans think London is full of Australians due to lots of Cockney accents. Surprised to find out that we do have electricity over here. Yes, we do. That we don't all live in castles. They only recognize people with posh accents as English or British, and that we have cars. Yes, I have really heard stuff like this. Just like Canadians ride in ice sleds, sled dogs pull sleds. That's our family vehicles. And we also live in enormous igloos, communal igloos. And we can fish right in our basement. We just, our basement is the lake, and we can fish down there. It's great. It's fantastic. I've been asked if I'm from Australia or South Africa, or why I'm putting on a bad pirate accent while visiting the US. Somerset isn't that bad. I get a lot of American people guessing that I'm Australian. I'm a bloody Geordie. They only get exposed to posh accents in media. Think Hugh Grant, Downton Abbey, cozy Sunday night dramas like Doc Martin. Certainly no UK Shameless or anything. Anything that features plebs needs to be remade to feature American plebs so they're understood. Nice. I was waiting for the train to Novi Sad from Budapest. I saw an older American couple looking confused, trying to ask random workers where the train to Bratislava was. Now, they were right under a huge board that said Bratislava, Platform 3. But you know how it is. Sometimes you just miss stuff like that. I know I do that sort of thing. I walked up to them and showed them the sign and pointed them in the direction of platform 3. The lady said, "Your English is so good. Where are you from?" "England." They both laughed, and she said, "Well, that explains it." Not a case of American tourists being daft, but they were nice people, and it's good to share a positive story. When I was young, we were on a family holiday in Scotland, and we were queuing up at a wee cafe to get an ice cream. The lady in front introduced herself to us and told us she was from New York and how much she was enjoying England. The bloke behind the counter looked really effing unimpressed. Yeah, be nice to people that are nice, right? Be nice to people that are nice. Be friendly, be kind, be generous, to the best of your abilities. I went to Edinburgh Fringe the year after graduating from uni, where I'd been fairly well known by other students for silly student politics reasons, and did something which ended up briefly becoming a bit of an inside joke among students. My former uni's comedy society were doing a review, so I figured I'd go along and see it. It had an audience of maybe 25 people. One of the performers did quite a lot of audience participation, and he picked on a pair of women a few seats along from me. They were a mother and a daughter from Louisiana. It was their first day in Scotland, although they thought they were in England, and they had never heard of the Fringe before and were completely baffled by what was going on and had ended up wandering to this random uni review, where most of the audience were in some way connected to the uni. Another performer went up and picked me as his mark, and we were chatting away when one of the other performers blurted out something like, "Wait, aren't you..." What? I don't know how to read. I don't know what's going on here. The girl who did X. So I told her that I was, and the guy on stage said something sarcastic along the lines of, "We've got royalty in the audience tonight." The American women kept whispering to each other and looking at me for the rest of the show. And at the end of the show, they came up to me, bubbling with excitement about how they couldn't believe they met a real-life princess on their first day in England. I tried to correct them, and it didn't seem to go through, so eventually agreed to give them an autograph. Well, that's innocent enough, I suppose. Ignorant, but kind of funny. Almost sweet in a way. All right. A couple of perfectly pleasant American tourists asked me once how to get to Oxford. We were near Piccadilly Circus, so I explained how to get the Bakerloo line to Paddington, then a mainline train to Oxford, but they'd need to buy a separate train ticket. I walked to the station with them. They started looking a bit overwhelmed, and eventually one said, "How long will that take?" "The train is about an hour." They said in the hotel it was only a quarter-hour walk, at which point I realized they meant Oxford Street. In Cambridge, I had some very rude Americans ask where the cathedral was, usually while standing right in front of King's College Chapel. I only told one lot how to get a train to Ely, nearest actual cathedral. In Florence, an old guy was selling paintings. I wanted to buy one. I managed to say hello and how much in Italian, but struggled with the numbers. He said €30 in English, and I couldn't afford it. Started haggling and making polite comments about the paintings and got down to €12. I said, "Why didn't you say that in the first place?" At which point the two stereotype Americans in sweatpants from a cruise ship barge in and bark, "How much?" €30, madam." "You what?" "How much in real money?" "Is $80, lady." Nearly 3 times the euro price. "Two for 150. They take 2 pictures, throw 150 at them, and walk off. Guy says to me, "That is why. For you, €5. Enjoy." Nice. So the painter, he's waiting for his American marks to come by. I was once in a KFC in Prague. I'm English. I just lived there for a while. And a middle-aged American man and his wife were shouting at the staff because they didn't accept dollars in Prague. They looked exactly how I would have expected, fanny packs and all. So another American stereotype that we've seen a lot in these stories is the Americans becoming upset, obnoxious, and abusive even to staff when their American dollars aren't accepted in foreign countries. That one's wild. The entitlement is off the charts, I think, with that one. And the ignorance. When I was in college, I had some tartan bunnet-toting American come bouncing up to me in Queen Street Station wanting directions to the castle. It took me a few seconds to realize that he meant Edinburgh Castle. So I told him the best way to get there was to get the train to Maryhill. "Can't miss it, pal." F-wit. Okay, good stuff. Once when I was flying home to London and in Heathrow, an older American woman asked me where to find the taxi rank. I can't remember exactly how we got to this point, but she let me know she intended to use dollars. I explained that we use pounds, and she could change her dollars to pounds at the bureau to change opposite. Green's green, honey. Green is, in fact, not green when you're in a foreign country. In fact, they may just not take it at all. If they do, you should be pleased that they do. Was on a couch tour of the Alps. Bus stops at the point where Italy, Slovenia, and Austria meet. Awesome scenery, memorial to the partisans who fought Hitler, American gentleman says. I shan't bother getting off. We've got bigger mountains than that at home. These two older women were from Arkansas in a pub. They started speaking to me first. Oh, our family is the Donaldson clan many years ago. That whole tired American Scotland's chick. The only thing I know about Arkansas was that Bill Clinton is from there. I mentioned it, and they both freaked and gave the most over-the-top reactions and went in a huff. I don't think it was he's a pedo hatred. I think it was more of him being a Democrat. Yes, Democrats and Republicans really do hate each other down there. My dad's favorite anecdote is actually from when he briefly lived in Paris. A street artist was painting views of Notre Dame, and apparently an American lady pointed out the rose window to her husband by saying, "Oh, look, Elmer, he's painting the clock." Oh, god damn it. It's just ridiculous. That comment too about Republicans and Democrats hating each other. I think political polarization obviously has gotten a lot worse. And people are now, they're riled up and propagandized so easily now, and they believe anything. And the thing with bullshit, let's just say, the Brandolini effect, right? Like, it's fake news and BS and half-truths and falsehoods can spread around the world in an instant. But it takes weeks, months, maybe even years and decades to refute and challenge that bullcrap. So it's not a new concept at all. Falsehoods have been able to be spread and used by people for ages to manipulate situations, whether they're made out of ignorance or truly nefarious. It's still kind of the same concept. In Corfu town, a few years ago, and several older Americans wearing either Jesus sandals or big chunky white trainers with socks up to their knees stick out like a sore thumb. It was good as it meant we were now the second worst people there. When you read these stories and comments, it's shocking how a lot of Americans are disconnected from the real world. Yeah, certainly. I think a lot of it's that, like, they're in a bubble, right? Reading through the comments make me embarrassed to be from the US. We're not at all like that. But we get some of the same thing here. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and after I moved to a different state, I did have some people ask me if I ever met the president. Okay, good to know. I shared a hostel room with an American woman who was spending her retirement traveling Europe, which is cool. But she used to get up at 7 a.m. and start talking to the blurry-eyed figures in the bedclothes who had been up till 2 a.m. at the folk festival and come back to the room to find her snoring so loud you could hear it down the corridor. She was like, "Oh, do some people play weird instruments?" to my friend who was checking her hurdy-gurdy over. Told us she didn't know why the Scottish tour guides had laughed when she said, "Oh, you must get lots of forest fires up here. How do you stop them?" Walked into an English music session at the festival and went, "Oh, why is nobody doing that Irish tap dancing stuff?" and tried to demonstrate. Told us that the cheese in France was very weird and she didn't like it. On the other annoying ones but where's the university? Types you get in Oxford. It's collegiate. It's everywhere. I'm telling you. Believe me, stop asking for directions to the Oxford campus. Oh, and for the one who was like, "Why are so many people dressed up? Is this some kind of cult?" when I was wearing subfuge for exams. I don't know that. Is that a school uniform? So yeah, a lot of good classic ignorant stories. Maybe in the time You've been watching this video the time I've been recording this video. Somebody dropped a nuke somewhere. Never know. This American tourist dropped a nuke. All right, we'll see you all in the next one. Hope you all are doing good, and get out there in your communities, and be nice. All right, peace out.